Hello, everyone, and welcome to a No Buts About It YouTube segment. This is water cooler analysis. This is what we're going to do after Monday Night Football games. A day or two later, we're going to try to digest what we saw on Monday night and bring in the main points, break them down, talk about them a little bit, like you might at your job when you're at the water cooler with your coworkers. You might talk about it a little bit. So, for this first ever episode of Water Cooler Analysis, we have Stan, the Jet fan, joining us. And Stan was able to witness an almost miraculous comeback by the New York Jets on Monday night. I had to go to bed because I had to go to work early in the morning. And I thought for sure the Bills were going to win that. I had picked the Bills. But what did you think? What did you like? What did you hate?
The main thing was it gives me a lot of hope. And obviously, there is the very, very unfortunate situation with Aaron Rodgers getting, an ACL tear and being out for the season. But we won that game because of special teams and defense. And if our special teams and defense is that good, that they could go and win games without having a good quarterback out there. If we can get Zach Wilson to the level he has to be at, or if we could get a quarterback into the building who could play at just an average level, I have no doubt that we'll be able to really make a big push in this league this year.
So, yeah, you mentioned Aaron Rodgers going down. And I remember when Joe Burrow went down his rookie year, I believe it was week 9 against I believe they were still the Washington Redskins at the time. He tore his ACL, and that feeling of hope and dread, or that feeling of hope that you had for the franchise, that all just kind of washes away in a moment. And Aaron Rodgers had the awesome entrance with him walking out carrying the American flag. It was so cool. You could feel the enthusiasm in the NFL, everything that they talked about all offseason with Aaron Rodgers becoming a New York Jet, that it all just kind of went away in that moment. So what were your feelings in that moment?
That first drive and a half of that game was the most exciting fan base, the most exciting stadium I've seen the Jets play in. That atmosphere was the best atmosphere I've seen in MetLife for a Jets game since the days of Revis. It was exciting. It was everything I had hoped for looking into this first week 1 matchup. And obviously on the fourth snap, he got injured, and things like that do happen. It was almost unbelievable, especially on the fourth snap. And at the time, it was very confusing what had happened. It looked like almost like an ankle sprain. That's what I remember the commentators talking about. And I was looking at Twitter and I saw that it said his X-rays came back negative for the ankle sprain. So I in my head, I thought, okay, he's going to be back next game. I understand taking precaution with a guy like Rodgers. When you want to make a big run, you don't want to take a risk if he has had already a sprain in that night. So I understood that. Let him rest it out. And it was about 30, 45 minutes after the game that I saw the Rob Saleh press conference. I got a notification on my phone, and I remember seeing Saleh say that he thought it was an ACL injury. And the next morning, that news came out, and it was absolutely devastating. The big question for me is, what will we do as a team to recoup after that? What will we do to make sure this offense has some way to flow? Because I saw that game. A lot of the viewers saw that game. And what the Jets defense and special teams was able to do was, quite frankly, magical. Okay, and one thing we talked about in the preview to that game on Monday is I discussed the two main things I'm looking at for the Jets. The Jets O-line, which obviously that was a slight part to why Rodgers got injured. But if you watch the actual game, the O-line was not that bad. We only had 3 sacks total, including that Rodgers one. And things like that do happen. I think a big part of that was Zach Wilson is a bit more nimble and quick in the pocket. He's able to avoid getting sacks. That's one of the better things about Zach Wilson. But that safety room that I told you about, I said, this is really the make or break part of this defense. If this safety room operates, I think we win the game. If they don't operate, I think we lose. And that safety room had 3 interceptions from Whitehead that night. 3
Mm-hmm.
interceptions,
Mm-hmm.
his career high in week 1. So quite a way to start off the season. That safety room is looking so much better. And that's with already having an injury to Chuck Clark, who was supposed to be starting in that safety room. Now we have Whitehead and Adams starting, and they did a great job. So this defense is so exciting, especially against Josh Allen, a guy who is, able to read the field very well. He's able to get away from those pass rushers. We sacked him 5 times that night. And the Bills, they've had O-line struggles, but they made some improvements this offseason. They have a Deion Dawkins type of guy who's a pillar on that O-line, and we're able to get past those guys quite a few times. So I'm very proud of that. Very happy to see my team doing that. The big questions for me now is, well, who's the quarterback going to be?
Yeah. So before we get into the discussion about who the quarterback's going to be, um, Whitehead, obviously phenomenal game, 3 interceptions off of who is usually considered a top 3 quarterback in the NFL. Josh Allen, though, didn't look like Josh Allen. He was making very stupid passing decisions. I'd say 2 of the 3 receptions or interceptions, when he threw them, it was like, why'd you throw that? Because the only person near it was Whitehead. And then the other thing, in my opinion, I thought Stephon Diggs beat Sauce Gardner most of the night. So I don't know if you noticed that or if you thought the same thing, but are you concerned about Sauce's performance at all?
In a way, yes. So when you look at Sauce Gardner's performance, most of Diggs' yards, if you look at every single pass that occurred that night, it wasn't really too many issues with Sauce. There were a few coverages where he was a foot behind and you had to kind of catch up. But most of his big plays came on the left side, which is not the part of the field that Sauce is on. So a lot of his yards did not come against Sauce. And where he did make plays against Sauce, those ended up being, receptions made at the first the first few yards after the marker, where he's able to where Diggs was able to get a good 10 yards, 5 yards just running after that. And in man coverage, Sauce did look fine. I think it was probably his poorest performance to date, but I'm not really too concerned because the main part of the game where Sauce does shine is in man coverage on those longer, big runs, and Diggs didn't really come up with any big plays there. Not that I can remember off the top of my head, at least. DJ Reed also, our second cornerback, he really overperformed on that left side where Diggs was. There was quite a few incompletions that Reed was able to force, not only with Diggs but with other receivers too. And even though he did give those big receptions to Diggs at times, you have to understand Diggs is one of the best wide receivers in the league of the last 5 years. In this time period, he's probably one of the best top 5 wide receiver, right? So giving those yards for DJ Reed to Diggs, I'm not too concerned with. I think the main thing is going to be, can Sauce shake this off? Mentally speaking, is he going to be able to move on from this game? Realize, okay, this happened. Next week we're dealing with the Cowboys. Let me focus on the Cowboys. Let me focus on looking at their scheme and being ready for that game. With cornerbacks especially, having a short memory, being able to move on from a poor performance, which happens for everybody, that is so important. So this is a big moment for him to be able to kind of recoup and get ready for this next game.
Okay, so final question. We've got a few minutes left here. You mentioned at the beginning of the preseason that if Zach Wilson looked good in preseason, you'd be open to him starting. Well, now it seems like we're in that situation where Zach Wilson could be the starter. He finished the game with a better passer rating than Joe Burrow, who had a 52.2. Josh Allen had a 62.7. And Patrick Mahomes had a 77.5 after his Thursday Night Football performance. Zach Wilson finished with an 81.4. So we've heard all sorts of names thrown out as to who could be the new Jets quarterback. We've heard Carson Wentz. We've heard Matt Ryan, Phillip Rivers, Tom Brady coming out of retirement, Colin Kaepernick, who hasn't played in a football game in 7 years. What do you think the Jets should do?
My opinion is you either go and you trade for, a fourth round type trade for a guy like Brissett, maybe a fifth round for a guy like Brissett, who we know can play fine. The issue is a lot of those type of names, like another guy's Winston, Andy Dalton. A lot of those guys are behind rookie or very, very young quarterbacks. So those teams don't want to give them up. I'd imagine that before the Jets decided they were going to roll with Wilson, which we all saw that I think it was this morning or last night, before that announcement came, I really thought they were going to try to get a trade. The trades didn't work out. Now, out of the free agents, there's not really too many big names. Brady, Flacco, Kaepernick were never really in the question. Nor would I want either of those three to be. I don't think they would be ready for next week or even a couple of weeks into the season to play well. And the big two that I mentioned were Carson Wentz, who I think has a lot of gas in the tank and has a chip on his shoulder, and then Matt Ryan, another guy, also a chip on shoulder guy who I was hoping one of them could step up. Now, since we haven't seen that happen, my assumption is those calls went out from the Jets office and they just weren't able to make it work. And that's fine. My issue with Zach Wilson is the interception and then just his inability to read the fields at times. It's almost just like how our defense is magical. His inability to read the field is just as magical. And he seems to his interception. There was two Bills players in front of the Jets player, and it made no sense to me. I just didn't understand why he threw that. And those are the types of reads he makes that are really confusing to me. On the other hand, our running backs looked phenomenal. Brees Hall is back, baby, and he's just as good, if not better, than I remembered him to be. So, looking at Brees Hall, looking at Cook, looking at even our backups to them, right? We have a really good running back room. So the hope is that the running backs can make it work, and Zach Wilson, with a week of practice, knowing that he's going to be the starter, maybe this can help him in terms of confidence, in terms of just preparation for the game, getting ready, knowing which plays he's going to have to make. Hopefully, that can help him. The other thing is these Bills players, they know Zach Wilson. So I'd imagine that type of matchup, knowing Zach Wilson's weaknesses for that coaching staff, it was probably easier than it's going to be for the Cowboys to tell apart Zach Wilson and tell apart our defensive line. Because the Bills play us twice a year. The Cowboys rarely play us once. So I do think this Cowboys matchup, if Zach Wilson can perform here, I'm happy with that for the rest of the season because I think the rest of our field will be able to bring us to the playoffs. My only concern is if he can't perform, what's the backup plan? Are we bringing Chris Trevler, or Tim Boyle out of the practice squad, or picking up another practice squad QB from somewhere else in the league? Are we going to really try to push for a Carson Wentz comeback? There's so many questions and not really a whole lot of answers there.
Okay. Well, yeah. Sounds like they're going with Zach Wilson for now. This has been the first episode of a segment we will be doing all season called Water Cooler Analysis. If you enjoyed this, please like, comment, and subscribe. If you think the Jets should go with another quarterback that we didn't mention, or you have an opinion of what the Jets should do at the quarterback position, please comment. We'd love to discuss it with you. If you're not already following the podcast, you can find it anywhere you can stream podcasts just by searching up No Buts About It. The logo is a photo of a football. And we post full episodes there, just like on the YouTube. Make sure you're subscribed to both because we post some stuff on Spotify and those platforms that we don't post on YouTube and vice versa. So until next time, thanks again. Stan the Jet fan and go do something nice for someone.